You thought you knew radio before, and then came me. This is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. All right, getting into it here. We've got a lot we're trying to cram into on this this segment here. We've got a couple of calls holding. We'll try to get to them as well. On this week of the Supreme Court ruling on Obamacare, the Republicans talked about health care once again in their weekly address. For the second week in a row, it was given by a senator, or given by a physician who is also a senator. This time it was Dr. John Barrasso from Wyoming. And we're going to just kind of run through this real quick, because this is basically showing you how all of these guys are pretty much the same in Washington. So anyway, to set the stage for the address, he starts out by laying the groundwork to attack the president on his assertion that the new law was not a tax.
On Thursday, I was in the courtroom as the Supreme Court ruled that the president's health care law is what the president claimed it was not, a new tax.
So the mandate is actually a tax, and the Republicans are correct in hanging this ruling around the president's head, because over and over he emphatically stated it was not a tax. So what did the American people receive from the Obamacare law instead of free choice and lower prices?
Under President Obama's health care law, they got the exact opposite. Tax increases and government control.
Tax increases and government control. That is what Obamacare means for America. But what about the Republicans? Does government control figure into their solution as well?
That means common sense solutions, like allowing premium breaks to encourage healthy behavior.
Allowing premium breaks to encourage healthy behavior. So who's going to determine what healthy behavior involves? Why, the government, of course. But I guess the Republicans don't see that as government control. Their goal, though, is repealing Obamacare. And they are determined to not have a repeat of this problem.
We will not make the same mistakes the Democrats made.
And to demonstrate that the Republicans are fully behind this, here is a clip from last week's Republican address given by another physician and congressman from Louisiana, Dr. Bill Cassidy.
It's important to know that Republicans will not repeat Democrats' mistakes.
All right, so the Republicans are determined to not repeat the Democrats' mistakes. Here is a list of things they are going to avoid.
We will not raise taxes in the middle of a recession.
That's not to say they won't raise taxes. They just aren't going to do it in the middle of a recession. But they'll consider doing it at the start of one, or the end, or even while we are riding high on a wave of expansion. How do they even know when we are in the middle of a recession? Can they see the end of it? Do they know when it ends so they can determine the middle? No, of course not. But it sure makes a good soundbite, doesn't it?
We will not push through a 2,700-page bill the American people can't afford and don't want.
No, Republicans never push through a 2,700-page bill, let alone one we cannot afford. We never get stories of Congress voting on huge bills that no one has read. And by the way, here's a news flash for Republicans and the rest of Congress. We cannot afford half of what you're doing now. So what are the Republicans going to do? They're going to appeal Obamacare.
Now we have another chance to reform our health care system, and in a way that does not result in higher costs, in fewer choices, and in less personal control. Once we have repealed the law, we will tackle the serious problems that plagued our health care system and are now getting worse.
And from last week?
So unless the court throws out the entire law, we should repeal what is left and implement common sense, step-by-step reforms that protect Americans' access to the care they need from the doctor they choose at the lowest cost.
Did you hear that? The Republicans are going to appeal Obamacare. But since they don't trust you to take care of yourself either, they are going to implement what they see as a fix.
We will replace this law with real reforms that will actually lower costs and improve access to care.
And again from last week?
It's now clear, if it wasn't already, that containing costs step by step, not expanding government in one fell swoop, is the right approach to healthcare reform.
So the government is going to get involved, which is going to lower cost. When has that ever happened? But have no fear. You are still the most important person in this equation.
What we will do is make sure that our healthcare system is truly patient-centered, not government-centered.
And again from last week,
that means implementing patient-centered solutions that lower cost and restore Americans' freedoms over their healthcare decisions.
You see, all these guys are worried about is you. All they want is the best for you. And if you will just set aside some of your freedoms and liberties and allow the government to take care of you. And they aren't going to throw all this regulation and bureaucracy at you all at once like those evil Democrats and their president want to do. No, they are going to implement these freedom-robbing regulations little by little.
Republicans in Congress are committed to a step-by-step approach that's focused on lowering the cost of care.
And here's last week.
We should seize this opportunity to protect jobs and work together on a step-by-step reform that will do what Obamacare did not do, which is to lower the cost of health care for families and small businesses.
Okay, so what is the ultimate goal?
Now we have another chance to reform our health care system, and in a way that does not result in higher costs, in fewer choices, and in less personal control. It is time for Washington to repeal the president's health care law and replace it with real health care reform.
And this one from last week I just played, but it's good to hear it again.
So unless the court throws out the entire law, we should repeal what is left and implement common sense step-by-step reforms that protect Americans' access to the care they need from the doctor they choose at the lowest cost.
Okay, these are just two congressmen that for the last 2 weeks have been laying the groundwork for the Republicans' idea of how the government should run health care. But what does Mitt Romney have to say about this? Does he agree that government should be running everyone's health care? Well, let's listen to his clip here.
I got to improve health care by getting it to work more like a consumer market and less like a government-dominated utility, and I will repeal and replace Obamacare.
Yep, repeal and replace Obamacare. What are they replacing it with? I guess we'll find out, but here is an idea. Why not just get the government totally out of this? That would lower costs, it would increase access, and result in more people getting better health care. But neither side believes that. They are all big government knows best people. So it is going to be up to us to make sure they get this law repealed, and then pressure them to get government out of health care altogether. Now, will it be easy? No, of course not. But doing the right thing rarely is. But does that mean we don't try? As long as I have this radio show, I'm going to try. I'll tell you that. It is up to you, the listening audience of this show, to get others to change their minds about how government should work. And having them tune into this show every Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. would be a really good start. Another way you can do that, which I'll give us a little plug again, is you can direct them to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. And that's facebook.com with the / and then Patrick Riggins Show all together. As I noted during the last segment, we also have that new YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. You can see all of our most of our archive shows there. We'll continue adding them as we work through them. We have to do a little bit of editing on those to take out some of the extraneous music and everything. So that way you don't waste your time listening to that. You can just get to the meat of what we're talking about here. If you have a topic or something on there, too, that you're talking to someone about and you can't remember quite what you heard on the show, you can just direct them to that, and they can get some a good attitude, a better attitude about this government thing, government being involved in your life. It'll give them some good information on that. Anyway, we're coming up on the last segment. Boy, this the show just flies by. This is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. We'll be back with the last segment of the show. We'll get into a little bit of the American dream and maybe one other thing if we have time. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.